Dawson Creek, British Columbia. Home to grain elevators, hardworking people, and one of the most efficient mills on the continent. This is where Louisiana Pacific Oriented Strand Board is made. Railroad cars are filled. Aspen arrives. Systems surge ahead like workhorses. And Dawson Creek people keep a close eye on quality. The Oriented Strand Board, or OSB, manufacturing process begins here, where aspen logs enter the factory. Jack ladders lift them onto a conveyor, where a detector senses the presence of any metal. When metal is found, or when logs are too crooked or large for the process, a quality control inspector activates this log outfeed, sending defective logs to the reject deck to be upgraded. This is the debarker, where the logs are stripped to their first layer of wood. Every layer counts in this efficient process. The logs are grouped together, then conveyed ahead to the waferizer. This is where the word strand in Oriented Strand Board comes from. The waferizer is a large rotating disc with 48 razor-sharp knives that slice the logs into wafer-thin strands. While the waferizer is working, another set of knives is being tested and sharpened. The knives are changed at regular intervals. Once the strands are cut, they move ahead for storage in these wet bins. Each bin can hold 5,000 cubic feet of wafers. This extra storage provides a steady supply for the rest of the process during an interruption, such as a waferizer knife change. The strands move from the wet bins to these triple pass rotary drum dryers. Here, most of their moisture is removed. First, they are fed into the center area of the drums. Then they are carried inside to the front end through a chamber. Finally, they are moved to the discharge end through another chamber. After that, conveyors carry them into the rotary screens. These screens separate the wafers by size. Wafers too small for the process are used for the heating systems. The good wafers are stored in these dry bins. The bins hold 10,000 cubic feet of wafers each, twice the capacity of the wet bins. These storage areas ensure a steady supply of wafers for the rest of the production line. At the blenders, the wafers are coated with resin and liquid wax, which help them bond together later on. This is where Oriented Strand Board begins to take shape. 4 separate forming stations evenly distribute the wafers on stainless steel screens. Technically, they're known as call screens. The screens act as individual mats, transporting the wafers throughout much of the process. Each of these forming stations creates a new layer of wafers. On the bottom layer, the strands are oriented lengthwise. On the middle layers, the strands fall into a random pattern. Then, like the bottom layer, the top strands are also oriented lengthwise. This increases the strength of the final product and is the basis for the name, Oriented Strand Board. At this point, frequent samples are taken to measure moisture content and to monitor the wax and resin levels. This is called a flying cut-off saw. It is basically a large, double circular saw that cuts through the wafers between each of the mats. To do this, it must travel at the same speed as the rest of the process. The wafers then move toward the loader cage. There are 12 layers in this rack. One by one, the wafers and their call screens are loaded on, ready to be pressed. When the stages are full, they all move into the press simultaneously. This is the press. It is where loose strands become solid. A supervisor constantly monitors and controls this process. The press is a 12-layer heat system featuring metal plates and high-powered hydraulics. Hot oil is circulated within the metal plates as hydraulic pressure forces the treated wafers together. With this combination of heat and force, the resins are activated to bond the wafers. At the same time, the call screens imprint a skid-resistant pattern onto the bottom layer of each board. The pressing time is determined by the thickness of wafer board being made. At the end of the press cycle, the unloader cage assembly removes the pressed wafer boards in one movement. It travels up and down, unloading each mat of wafer board onto the trim and grade saw line. As each board enters the saw line, the call screen peels away and is transported underneath the entire forming line, returning again to the forming station area. Now the boards are cut in this triple saw assembly. The boards are cut along each outside edge and down the center. Then the panels are cut in the other direction with 4 saws, 2 for the middle, 2 for the edges. This results in 4x8 foot panels. Each pressing cycle yields 72 sheets this size. After being grouped in the stacking bin, the sheets are edge sealed with paint and banded together for shipping. Then they are carried to the storage area where they must cool for 24 hours. Then they are ready for shipping. Tractor trailers and rail cars carry these valuable bundles to an international marketplace. But this factory is more than a highly profitable operation. It is a highly efficient one as well. A thermal oil system, fueled by waste wood product, provides all heating sources necessary for OSB production. The dryers are fueled by wood product as well. Wafers too small for the process are sent to this hammer mill, where they are ground up. Then they are conveyed to the dryer burners, where they generate enormous heat. Emissions are carefully controlled by this valuable series of scrubbers. Oriented strand board by Louisiana Pacific. Efficiently produced, carefully monitored, superior by design.